big thing you guys are going to face, if you haven't already, is e-cigarettes, vapes, and Juuls. Now, I want to find out where you guys are information-wise. So, let me ask you guys. Raise your hand if you've heard that e-cigarettes, vapes, or Juuls are healthier or safer for you than regular cigarettes. Who's heard that? Okay. Wow, that's everyone. Hands down. How many of you guys have heard that they're actually worse for you or just as bad as regular cigarettes? Okay, pretty much everyone. Hands down. How many of you guys have heard that you can find nicotine-free vapes? So you can find vape juice that does not have nicotine in it. Okay, pretty much everyone. Hands down. And how many of you guys have heard that pretty much every single vape juice has nicotine in it? Okay, pretty much everyone. Hands down. So as you guys can see, those pieces of information were pretty 50-50 split. And a lot of you guys had even heard both of those pieces of conflicting information. And that is exactly what the tobacco industry wants. Note takers, please write this down. The tobacco industry wants you to be confused about e-cigarettes. They want you to be confused about e-cigarettes so that you don't know whether they're healthier, safer, worse, whether they have nicotine or not, and you can't make an informed decision. Ray, did you want to do my writing up here?
I sure can.
Okay. So the tobacco industry wants you to be confused. Now, super easy question. Somebody shout out the answer. What's the main chemical in regular cigarettes that gets people addicted? Go ahead and shout out. Nicotine. Exactly. Nicotine is the chemical in regular cigarettes that gets people addicted. But I bet almost every single one of you guys has nicotine somewhere else in your homes, especially out here in Arkansas. If I ask you guys to raise your hand and tell me where you think you could find nicotine in your home, but here are the rules. It cannot be a tobacco product of any kind. So it cannot be an e-cigarette, Juul, or vape. It can't be a regular cigarette. It can't be chewing tobacco, nicotine gum, nicotine patch, cigar, and it can't be that one uncle that smokes all the time, okay? Other than a tobacco product, where do you think you can find nicotine? What do you think? Bug spray. That is exactly right. Wow, on the first try, give him a round of applause. That was cool. You would be able to find nicotine in bug spray. Now, the reason why they put nicotine into bug spray is because what nicotine actually is it's a super, super deadly poison. Nicotine is one of the strongest poisons known to man. Now, how many people in here have ever sprayed a bug with bug spray before? Okay, pretty much everyone. I'm sure out here in Arkansas, you guys get some crazy bugs. And how fast do they die? Pretty fast, right? Like almost immediately. That's because of how strong of a poison that nicotine is. Now, way before I knew this information, when I was about your guys' age, I was in 9th grade, I had just a super, super rough day at school. Like one of those days where all you want is to go home and relax. So I go home, I say hi Mom and Dad, I lay in bed and I'm relaxing. And as I'm laying in bed, I open my eyes and on my ceiling, I see the biggest spider I have ever seen in my entire life. Anyone else scared of spiders? Okay, good. Not just me. So I see the spider and I start freaking out and I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta do something, I gotta kill this spider before it kills me. And I'm like looking for something to kill this spider with. Now, I don't know what kind of 9th grader has bug spray in their room, so instead, I grabbed hairspray. So I take this entire can of hairspray and I'm just going nuts spraying this bug. And I'm just like, shh, you need to die, shh. And I'm just spraying this entire can of hairspray onto this bug. Now I'm looking at it, it's getting covered with hairspray, it's getting all sticky, and it's trying to crawl away, but it can't because it's so sticky, so it's doing like a robot walk, like trying to crawl away. And then it crawled away to where I couldn't see it anymore. And I was like, did it die? Did it not? I don't know, you gotta get rid of the whole house now. But that spider didn't die. Now the reason why that spider didn't die is because that hairspray doesn't contain nicotine. Exactly. Nicotine is one of the you guys how this button works. Has anybody in here at one point or another had mom, dad, sibling, best friend, somebody jump out and really scare you good? Who's had that happen? Okay, pretty much everyone. 2 hands up. Hands down. How many of you guys have ever jumped out and really scared someone good? That one's a little more fun. Hands down. Anyone sitting next to the person they scared right now? Oh, great. Okay, you guys. That's awesome. Let me find something out. When somebody jumps out and really scares you good, where are my screamers at? Who lets out a good scream when they get scared? Okay, clap you guys. That's alright, there's no shame in it. Hands down. Where are my runners at? Who runs from whatever scares them? I jumped to the ground. Guys, a lot of you guys are runners and screamers, I see. Last but not least, where are my punchers at? Who punches whatever scares them? Wow. Some of you guys are all 3, I see. Hands down. So, I have an older brother, and when I was little, I used to love to scare my older brother. But guess which one of the 3 he was? He was a puncher. So every now and then I would hide somewhere and I would jump out and scare my brother, and my brother would just punch me. So like the little sister that I am, I would run to my mom like, Mom, he hit me. And my mom would always get super mad at my brother, which I always thought was hilarious. So I'd hide somewhere, I'd jump out, I'd scare him, he'd hit me, my mom would get mad, and we would just do this over and over and over again until one day my mom got fed up with it. So my mom goes to my brother and she says, if you hit your little sister one more time, I'm taking away your Xbox, your PlayStation, your computer, I'm taking away everything. So, like a good little sister, of course I have to scare him again. One last really good scare together. So, one day after school, I rush home so I can beat him home. I get home, I go into his closet, I go in there and I hide down. And I'm hiding, and I'm hiding, and I'm waiting, and I'm waiting, and I'm hiding behind some clothes. And I see him come home, and he walks over to the closet, and he opens up the door, and I scare my brother. Now my brother, out of instinct, pulls back to punch. And then this whole situation turns into like a slow motion movie scene, like from Fast and the Furious or one of those action movies, where he's watching his fist like, between the go button and the stop button. That's what makes it really, really easy for somebody to start smoking cigarettes or to start vaping, and really, really difficult for them to stop. That's what makes nicotine so addictive. Let me ask you guys, how many of you guys know somebody who has tried to quit smoking cigarettes like 2 or 3 times and they cannot do it? Wow. Almost every single hand. That is because of how addictive that nicotine is. Now, the really hard part about addiction is those people want to stop. They want to stop and they can't. And that's exactly what the tobacco industry wants for you guys. They want you guys to not be able to stop doing things like vapes, Juuls, and e-cigarettes. Now, when it comes to vape juice, there are so many different kinds of vape juice. In the Los Angeles County alone, there is over 7,000 different flavors of vape juice. And we've traveled around to a lot of different middle schools and high schools where the students will tell us crazy different flavors they've heard. And we've heard some crazy, crazy ones like sugar booger, unicorn farts,
brain freeze,
brain freeze, yeah.
green.
see whether or not this was true. So they got a bunch of different nicotine-free vape juices, and they tested them to see how much nicotine was actually in them. And when they tested them, what do you guys think they found? Nicotine. What they found was that 98% of nicotine-free vape juices still contained large amounts of nicotine. Now, when I heard that, I thought, that's really weird, right? That doesn't make sense that a product that says absolutely nicotine-free is actually filled with nicotine. But it's almost like, question? Yeah, so they can put 0% of nicotine and what?
No, they can put under the 0%.
Oh, yeah, under 0%?
And then it gives you
Exactly. So here's how they can do it. Here's how they can get away with putting something that says 0% nicotine and it actually has nicotine in it. Anybody in here like Tic Tacs? Not TikTok. Tic Tacs? Oh wow, good amount of you guys. That's great. We're keeping the Tic Tac business in business. I love it. If you get a box of Tic Tacs and you look on the back, it'll say 0 grams of sugar, or it'll say sugar-free, or a lot of the time there's not even a section for sugar on the nutrition facts. Now, sorry to break it to you guys, Tic Tac lovers, but Tic Tacs are like 99.9% sugar. They're basically just mint-flavored sugar. But the way they can say they're sugar-free is because of how small they are. Because of how small they are, they technically have less than 1 gram of sugar, so the FDA says they can say they're sugar-free. Now, the tobacco industry has figured a similar way around this rule, where they can say that their products are nicotine-free, when in reality they are filled with nicotine. So here's what the rule is for the tobacco industry. If a vape juice contains 19 cigarettes worth of nicotine or less, they can say that it's absolutely nicotine-free. It's only if a vape juice contains 20 cigarettes worth of nicotine or more, they have to say that there's nicotine in there. Anyone know why it's 20 cigarettes? Anyone have any guesses why it would be that specific number? What do you think? Yeah, because it's 1 pack. 1 pack of cigarettes is 20 cigarettes. So anything that has less than 1 pack of cigarettes is allowed to say that it's nicotine-free. Isn't that crazy? So that vape juice that someone's like, hey, this one's okay because it's just water vapor, that vape juice is allowed to have up to 19 cigarettes worth of nicotine inside of it and still say nicotine-free. Now, when somebody takes that vape juice, they take the vape and they breathe in on it, that vapor goes into the lungs at about 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, let me ask you guys, any bakers in here? Anyone like to bake cookies or cupcakes or anything? Sorry, bakers. Self-play. For those of you who like to make cookies and cupcakes and cakes and stuff, what temperature is the oven usually at? 350, exactly. So 100 degrees hotter than an oven usually is how hot that vapor goes into the lungs. Now that vapor goes in, it adds a lot of heat and moisture, and it's almost like, anybody in here would take a really hot shower on a cold day? Who's done that? Good, everyone, because that's the best. When you take a quick hot shower, where you're in and out pretty quickly, what happens to the mirror? It gets all foggy, exactly. But when you take that like 3-hour-long hot shower, where you're in there for so long that like you forget there's a world outside of the shower, and you just turn into like a hot dog at the gas station, just like twirling around, and just like cooking your skin a little bit. When you take that super, super long hot shower, then the bathroom is like ultra foggy. And you can see the steam in the air, and the walls are dripping with liquid, and now your dad's really mad because it's going to grow mold. Maybe that was just my dad. When you take that super, super hot shower, then the bathroom is super foggy. Now, if I took a piece of toilet paper, and I threw it against a dry mirror, what would happen? It would just fall off, exactly. Those of you who said stick might not be paying attention. But if I took that toilet paper and threw it against a mirror after I took that super, super long hot shower, then it sticks, exactly. That's the same the lining of the lungs, and what they're finding is it makes it really, really hard for people to breathe. Now, vaping has only been around for about 10 years, but we're starting to see people already having difficulty breathing because of vaping, because of how hot that vapor is, because of the way that it sticks to the lining of the lungs. Now, here comes a sad fact about cigarettes. Every year, just in the United States, 484,000 people will die from cigarettes or some kind of tobacco use. 484,000. I know that's a really big number. It's hard to imagine what 484,000 people looks like, so I'll break that number down for you guys. What that number works out to is about 1,300 people every day, or about 54 people every hour. So that's about one person every minute. Every single minute that passes by, one person has died from cigarettes or some kind of tobacco use. Now, the tobacco industry looks at that number and they go, wow, 484,000, that's a pretty big number. That's 484,000 people that aren't buying cigarettes anymore. That's 484,000 people whose money they have lost. So what the tobacco industry has to do is the tobacco industry has to get 500,000 new people addicted to their products every year in order to continue making money. The tobacco industry just wants to make money. So they're marketing e-cigarettes, vapes, and jewels directly towards you guys. Even though the tobacco industry claims that they're marketing to adults, that is a complete lie. The truth is they're marketing it directly to you guys, because remember how my dad talked about how your guys' brains aren't fully developed yet? That means it's going to be harder for you guys to see how dangerous these things are. It's going to be a lot harder for you guys to realize that these might not be so good for you. And they know that. So they're marketing them directly to you guys. Anyone know how they're marketing them to you? What do you think? The flavors, exactly. Remember all those crazy different vape flavors we talked about? All of those flavors are specifically designed so that you guys hear stuff like cotton candy, Fruity Pebbles, Sour Patch Kids, and you think that it's okay. Now, vaping, just as bad for your lungs as regular cigarettes, and almost every single vape juice out there contains nicotine. Thank you, guys.
Wait, I want to add this one part.
Oh, here.
Something that's really gross, and this is kind of not totally new, but the problem that they're seeing now in a lot of schools is kids are sharing these vapes. So a kid will go into a bathroom, have a vape, and he uses it, and his buddy comes in, and then he hands it to his buddy to use. There's one kid, I think in Connecticut, who was like selling vape pits in a bathroom in between class for $1. Now let me tell you how unbelievably really gross that is. And if you want to do a skit on this, this is totally fine. Now, how gross it is. That would be like if I stood up here and I took a metal spoon and I put that metal spoon in my mouth for a minute, and then I pull it out and I hand it to this girl and I'm like, put that spoon in your mouth real quick, and then when you're done, pass it to her, and we're going to pass it all the way back till it gets to the back right there. That's exactly what it's like. Sexually transmitted diseases through the mouth, such as HPV, is going crazy with your group. And so the thing is, because people are passing this out, now HPV, go ahead and talk about that with girls real quick.
Now, HPV is especially dangerous for young ladies because it can cause cervical cancer and some other really terrible stuff. And then in guys, it won't show symptoms for a long time. So a lot of people can have it and not realize that they have it.
Right. So it's unbelievably gross. Questions about vaping, something that you may be wondering about before we break you back up into groups. Questions. One time I heard, how come, what if? In my generation, when they brought us into rooms like this to talk about cigarettes, 17% of my high school class smoked cigarettes. My daughter's grade, go ahead.
My generation, the millennials, it's down to 1%. And your generation, Gen Z, is expected to be less than 0.5% will ever smoke cigarettes.
That's regular old-fashioned cigarettes.
Mm-hmm.
Back in my day, with the tobacco companies, and they knew this, all it took was 3 cigarettes. That's it. 3 cigarettes to get us addicted. If my generation smoked 1 cigarette on Monday, 1 on Wednesday, 1 on Thursday, the next cigarette that we smoked, we had a addiction to it because of the nicotine going in. With vapes now, the nicotine levels are so high.
The nicotine levels are so high that they're finding that the addiction happens really, really fast. It happens within about 3 days of trying a vape. Somebody will tend to form an addiction.
Here's what is going to happen. We're going to break you back up into your groups for about 10 minutes. Don't plan your skit. Don't even talk about your skit. You're just going to come back and talk about those. What I want you to do is discuss the information that we presented to you right here and find one or two pieces that you think would be important for your school to hear. Just something, one piece of information about vaping or alcohol that you think would be important for them to hear. So go ahead and break back up into your groups.